Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode slash video. Thank you so much for joining me today, whether you are watching or listening. You're deeply appreciated to be a part of this conversation. Okay. Today, I want to dive into a very deep conversation that needs to be conversated about a lot more. Last week, I had a therapy session that really made me think about this and think about how my experience might not be original to me. A lot of other survivors might feel this way. And I was like, I want to talk about it. So this year I went back to therapy to try to heal through some of my trauma, through being in an abusive relationship, going through SA and all that. And I don't know if you guys know how therapy works, but you don't just jump right in everything right on. Like, you guys can talk about honestly, like, whatever I bring to the table that day. If I got a problem with this or that, like, it's like an open book. But typically that is what I went in for. And last session, we dove like a little bit more into details of that relationship, what I went through. And as I was telling my therapist all this, she was like, wow, okay, so like this happened, that happened. And she was like, well, what made you think that like you still needed that relationship, even though like you knew subconsciously, like, this is ridiculous, I don't deserve this, yada, yada, yada. I was like, good question. And I told her that I think that when you're in an abusive relationship, it's really confusing. Um, because, I was emotionally abused heavily and essayed on a couple occasions, sexually harassed a lot. But it's like when the abuse wasn't happening, my abuser was so nice to me. So nice to me, so loving. So you're so beautiful. Let me DoorDash you food. I love you. This and that. Anytime he was out of that abusive, anytime he wasn't abusing me, like, it just felt like, oh, but he's trying and this is really nice, and but he said this. And I think a lot of people hold on to the good even when they literally give you nothing. They give you an inch because that's how abuse and manipulation works. And she was like, yeah, that is so true. Like, you're definitely not the only victim of abuse who feels like that. Like, especially it's hard when you love someone. You want to be like, oh, they may do this to me, they may hurt me and all this, but then I see this part. And so then I have hopes that this part can stay like that more often or for longer. Or maybe your abuser, like in my case, is telling you that they won't do something again or won't do that again. And you just want to have that hope, even though they're not giving you that hope. You're giving that hope to yourself. And that's not a very reliable source. Basically, what I'm trying to say, y'all, is sexual abuse and trauma is such a confusing experience. Like, and it, oh my God, I don't even want to get into that, but anytime I think about how confused I was by what happened to me, why it took so long for me to process and acknowledge it, I just think sometimes how difficult it is for people who went through that, especially as children, maybe not knowing what that is. Like, that was their first time intro, and it really makes me upset. For context, I'm 21 years old and I went through sexual abuse around 1920. So I was an adult, but a young adult. In my case, I was abused by my partner, who I was in a committed relationship with, who I was already having consensual sex with outside of these situations. And, I didn't know this again because, like, when you're a victim, you're kind of forced to learn. I didn't know how many people process it later. Because in the relationship, I wasn't like, I need to leave because he keeps like sexually assaulting me. Like, it was hard for me to like admit it, even though I know it didn't feel good. And I was like, I said no, and he kind of just kept going. And like, I don't know. When you love someone, you try to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though you shouldn't. But I had my own reasons for finally leaving that relationship. A lot of it was like the emotional abuse was just too much and I couldn't take it. And I didn't process like, oh, well, there was a lot of essay in there. I wasn't able to process that till months after. I just started having flashbacks of the memories. And I was like, whoa, why am I panicking? I'm having flashbacks, feeling like I'm like in that room, unsafe again. Like, you know how, I don't know if you guys know how anxiety works, but I heard like a scientist, psychologist break this down one time that it's like, you know, effects of anxiety are like shortness of breath, hyperventilating, fast heart rate. And it's like because we're animals like any other animal, and it's like your mind thinks that you're in danger, even though like in the physical reality you're not. But like your mind connects that to your body, and that's why you have those effects. And I was like, what is happening? Because I'm like, I've never really had anxiety about something from the past. Normally, when I've had my panic attacks before, it's like because of how I'm feeling in that moment. And before I told anyone about what I went through, like it was so hard to admit because I was like, well, when I think of essay or grape like type stuff, I think of like, oh, this is like violence. You know, it's like a violent force. In my case, it wasn't that. It was started something, me being like, oh, like, no, I don't want to do that right now, and me just being ignored. I didn't try to fight anybody off. I kind of just froze and let him do what he wanted to do, even though I already expressed and said no. And so I'm like, well, since it wasn't like violent, does that count? I also thought about so many times during consensual times when I would say something was hurt and uncomfortable, he would stop. Oh, of course, like we don't, if it hurts you, I don't want to do that. And it's just so confusing because I thought to myself, like, how could I have times like that? And then I have other times when you just ignored me and violated me. But then sometimes, like, what? It's a really, really confusing experience. And I think the reason it isn't because we necessarily want to question ourselves and invalidate ourselves. It's because of society. I know if y'all are on any form of social media, y'all are hearing about the man versus the bear conversation. It's like, as a victim, but like, especially as a woman, it's just like you have to think about so much before you want to bring it to the table. Because it's like, honestly, when I think about essay and I hear about other people speaking up, my mind automatically goes to disappointment. I'm like, because I already know the first question is probably going to be like, are you sure? Like, him, like, girls and victims are just met with so many questions instead of immediate comfort, immediate I believe yous, that I think it leads us to question ourselves. Like, well, maybe not, or maybe this, or, you know? Yeah, so that whole time trying to process it, I was just so confused. And then also there's terms. I hear a lot of people are like trying to kind of demolish the terms because they're like, it doesn't matter which one you identify as, they're all the same thing. Because, you know, we have essay, or we have words like molest, or we have words like grape. And it's just like, it also makes you question where I'm like, well, I don't want to say grape because was it that bad? Or I don't like, I didn't even want to put any term on it. Like when I first came to my family about it, I was just like, well, he used to like try to make me do stuff that I didn't want to do. I couldn't even tell them that like he didn't try. He like succeeded in literally violent. Like it was just so hard to get it out of my mouth, and it still is sometimes to this day. It's like I don't know. And again, it really breaks my heart um taking in seeing stuff on social media like, you know, the Nickelodeon documentary and stuff like that. It just like breaks my heart cuz I'm like this was so confusing and hard for me to process. And then thinking about kids having to process that must be even more confusing when like you've never seen that before or you've never like and it's just It's really hard. And if you are a victim at all, but especially someone who's a victim as a child, I just want to say I'm so sorry. And I know people are terrible and you might not have gotten the reaction you wanted, but I just want to say I hear you, I see you, your feelings are valid. Okay? That means anything. I hope it does because that's just what everyone wants to hear, but unfortunately that's not the response that everybody always gets. I also want to talk about like the guilt of SA is really crazy. That guilt is placed on the victim so often subconsciously, publicly, but rather than the predator. Like I've been taken in a lot these past couple weeks hearing about the cases in the media that are very famous right now. You know what I'm talking about. And in one of the cases, one of the lawsuits, I heard a girl literally talking about something similar that happened to me. Like, oh, yeah, he would tell me, like, I have to sleep naked or else I'm like keeping myself from him. And that's like a similar experience that I went to. I was always pressured to do that no matter how much I explained. It made me uncomfortable, this and that. And when I see stuff like that, although it's heartbreaking, it's just really crazy because I'm like, wow, abusers don't have one original activity. Like, I'm just like, someone else has been through that exact thing. So it's not just me. Because especially when you're in those situations, you feel so alone. Like I can't tell my friend like all this terrible stuff that he's doing to me. Like I know they're not going to relate. Like you really never know who relates in silence. And it's just really crazy. Consuming a lot of the media also had me panicking a couple days ago, I'm going to be honest, because I think about these cases and how it seems like abusers almost never get better. Like when they're out here being put on blast, maybe finally some accountability is being taken, it's like there's an ex-girlfriend or there's another woman who sees that and is like, oh my God, like this happened to me. He abused me too. And it really just started making me panic because I was like, oh my God, what if that is me one day? Like, what if I see this person being put on blast one day, being all over the news one day, and it's like, I felt guilt of like, would that be my fault that like I didn't talk enough or maybe I didn't tell enough people? Would that be my fault that he went on to do it again or that he got worse? And it's like, why am I taking that burden? You know, like I understand where my panic is coming from, where I feel like I'm getting out of breath right now just thinking about it. I understand like me just having empathy and having fear because of what I've been through and feeling for other people. But at the end of the day, like I have to calm myself down and be like, well, an abuser being an abuser is not my problem. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you do. You go and tell people who knows, okay, they might not believe you. You go and like tell him off, okay, he already knows what he's done. Like, you know, it's like it's not my responsibility to get someone to change, like, you know? And I have to release myself from that guilt. I'm still working on it. And I think a lot of other people who have been through abuse might have a similar take. So I wish healing and that release of shame from all of us, no matter what you do. If you go out there and you tell people and you use government names, you fucking go, bitch. Okay? You ate that up. You ate that up because someone being a predator is everyone's business. It's everyone's business. And if you don't, if you stay quiet, if you're not comfortable saying that, if you keep it within your circle or whatever, I'm proud of you too. Because this is hard. This is hard. It's not an easy conversation. Like, I'm like, I couldn't even see myself going back and like talking directly to people he knows, maybe until I don't know, until I'm not this affected and not still living in fear. Because I'm like I said, for victims of sexual assault, everything is so disappointing. Like, I don't want to go do something under like a quick decision and then get met with so much negativity and then it makes my mental state worse or it makes me feel worse, you know? So, whatever you do as a victim, you're valid. Okay. You're valid. Let's ground ourselves, everybody. Yeah, guys, this is a really, really confusing and difficult thing to process. So I'm proud of you for existing and doing your best. I'm sure your best was better than 3 months ago, whatever. Just be patient, okay? Like, I remember when I first started process this, I would be so frustrated. After a week, I'll be like, why am I not over this? And now I'm here, a year free from my abuser, and I still have a panic attack. I still whatever, It takes time and it's supposed to. It's not a quick fix. It sucks. Of course, I wish it was. Like, where is the mind erasing gun from Gravity Falls? But I don't know. It's my experience and I've learned through it, although I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but you know, I might not be able to share my story and find community in this way when I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So, yeah. Thank you guys once again for hearing me speak from the heart about this very, very difficult conversation. Like I said, if you are a victim, I'm so sorry. I'm proud of you for existing because it's hard. Gotta keep going, okay? Gotta keep going, like Janae said. But you got this. And if you're not, thank you for listening, educating yourself, hearing me out. Please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Comment for real. I'm here. I'll reply to you. It's really nice to find community, like I said, and find that your experience is not as original as you think. It's a really nice feeling, but terrible feeling at the same time because I don't wish that so many of us related. If you guys enjoyed this video, I have a playlist called Yap Sessions with lots of similar content, healing, all of that. Go take a listen if you're interested. If this got a little deep, I also have some story times. I'm kind of funny, y'all. Like, I gotta be serious in conversations like this, but that's a little bit of the content that I offer on this channel. But thank you guys so much for hearing me out, making it to the end of the video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!